Well, judging from the carving on your desk, it looks like his name is Ozzy.
Yes, and apparently he rules.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Cantina. You know the rules, no droids, no bounty hunters, and everybody gets to hang out and not be bothered. All right, that's the rule. And want to talk a little bit more about the aftermath of what happened to Charlie Kirk. First off, you get Mark Hamill on Blue Sky, basically saying, we don't need, he's basically trying to, I don't know, distance himself from what happened. And Stephen King, notorious leftist, old hippie, pathetic, aging hipster.
There's nothing more pathetic than an aging hipster.
All right, Boldy.
I mean, that's what they are, and they don't get it. This didn't happen. This is not an isolated incident, what happened to Charlie. This is a culmination of lies perpetuated by the left. Trust me, Stephen King and Mark Hamill both know, because of when it first happened, and Stephen King freaked out. Mark Hamill immediately went on the defensive and tried to distance himself. Now again, he's screaming at Trump, dehumanizing people. Now, how did this start? There's a guy named Joseph Stalin. And in order to be the only guy on the block, he started smearing other socialists with the right-wing motif. Any legitimate political science professor would tell you the further right you get, the more, the less control there is. And when you look at how the fascists in Italy and the fascists in Spain, Francisco Franco, and the Nazis lived and did things, it was all corporatism. It was all corporatism. You want to read a great book, read The Arms of Krupp. I've talked about this before. So these two clowns want their movie to be a success, but because of their mouths and because they know better and they still can't stop it, they're going to fail. The Long Walk, this movie that Mark was in, is likely not going to do anything at the box office. In fact, it's probably going to be a bomb, strictly because of what happened to Charlie Kirk. And to be honest, I know that back in the past, Stephen King was a successful, I think, dime store novelist. I don't particularly like his books. It's not like he was, F. Scott Fitzgerald or Hemingway or anything. He just wrote vile, evil crap. And humanity has a thing for horror. I don't think that anything he wrote, including the only thing that I thought was decent, Salem's Lot, could compare to Frankenstein or Bram Stoker, the author's novel Dracula, because it's cheap. The left values cheapness, okay? They don't put any intellectual value on words, on phrasing, on anything, because if they did, the world would be different. Okay, it's easier to gut something from the horror genre turning into nothing but slasher crap, Pet Cemetery, etc., instead of what we got in The Exorcist, what we got in Dracula, what we got in Frankenstein, which are really essays on the human condition and the supernatural and the psychology of evil, right? And because evil exists. These are people on the left, and I'm including Mark Hamill and stuff, that can't define evil anymore. What was the great line? What was it? Isaiah or Jeremiah who said, "Woe to them who call good evil and evil good." And that's what they're doing right now, right? And I think it's time that companies like Disney, Sony, Sundance, Paramount, Warner Brothers, etc., I think it's time that they start distancing themselves from this kind of behavior. Because when you look at what radicalized Noodle Arm Robinson, it wasn't his parents. It was them. It was Mark Hamill and Stephen King and, you know, that Dowd guy that got his ass fired, and, you know, the professors at the university he went to, and the culture itself, and how what the gamers, right? I mean, the FBI is now looking into a trans, basically it looks like to me a trans terrorist group, and the gaming things and all the rest of the LGBTQ radicals that he was, you know, in contact with on Discord. That's where he got radicalized, right? Blaming, all right, Charlie Kirk for what happened, blaming Donald Trump instead of what did Obi-Wan say to Anakin?
You have done that yourself.
I mean, the left did this to themselves, right? And if you really think about it, do you want someone celebrating the murder of a political opponent, right? Do you want someone who smears people who aren't Nazis and basically could get sued into oblivion for libel and slander working for you? Do you want them to represent your company? No. I mean, what did Cornwallis say?
I have never lost a battle. You serve me, and the manner in which you serve me reflects upon me. I would have thought that a gentleman from a family as esteemed as yours would understand that.
I would think that a man in Mark Hamill's position and in Stephen King's position would understand what they look like to the rest of us, and that every day the Democrat Party loses more support because of what happened to Charlie. And the fact that they both know, because Stephen King apologized, we saw that, and Mark, you know, was backing off of his rhetoric. Now he's right back into it because, sadly, look, pray for his soul. He's crazy. Okay. They need to understand that they are responsible for everything that comes out of their mouths. You can say whatever you want, but Lucasfilm and Warner Brothers and Disney doesn't have to fucking hire you, okay? They don't, and they shouldn't, right? I wouldn't. You know, it's time for these people to reap what they sowed. And if that means not getting a role, not getting a movie made, a book failing, a film failing, that's the price they pay for being unbelievably horrible and dehumanizing Charlie Kirk because he told kids to be monogamous, to come back to God, to live righteous lives. And then they called him a Nazi and a racist and where they get this from is what the left does is that they'll take something somebody says, the full quote, and they'll edit it because they know the Tyler Robinsons of the world and the tranny he was fucking won't have the intellectual curiosity enough to read the whole thing. And if they honestly believe the whole quote is racist, homophobic, which is bullshit, there's no such thing, etc., then they are truly evil and demonic. And if we're going to save the culture, there has to be somebody willing to say, I'm not, I'm done with this. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but this is bullshit. All right. Billy D. Williams on his Facebook page made a statement. And he, again, didn't truly understand everything because, again, in Hollywood, you're not intellectually curious enough to go see what the guy said. Truly, right? But at least he tried. And it was a long, long paragraph. But, again, the responses from people on the left were unbelievably dehumanizing. And we have a problem with these people. Again, they should not be hired. You do not want them in positions of power over kids. You do not want them in positions of power in the culture. I mean, here's the deal. Let's go back to TLJ. Let's go back to The Last Jedi. Remember what Pablo Hidalgo did? Remember Ryan Johnson? They dehumanized fans who didn't like their garbage, right? They dehumanized normal people. Now, I can't say anything because I don't have any kids. My husband and I don't have children. We have a dog and a horse. But Pablo Hidalgo doesn't either. And that was my choice. I'm going to say that until that comes out differently, until we find out different. Ours wasn't by choice. All right? Ours wasn't by choice. And I've accepted that part of my life since I was 17 years old. Okay, so whatever. Going after somebody who advocated for families, for men to behave, for traditional values, which are not bad, and calling him a Nazi to the point where some psychopath left-wing asswipe murdered him, and then go, well, I didn't really, fuck you. You people are the ones that gave him the impetus to do what he did. And again, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, and I think any righteous, normal human being is concerned, these people have no business in our society, no business anywhere. In our culture, in our healthcare system, hanging out with the kids, anywhere in government, because they're a danger. They're a danger. They cannot accept political opposition, and they're poisoning kids' minds, like Tyler Robinson, to do things that are awful. And to me, I think they want us dead. Okay, they want us dead. Pablo Hidalgo and all the rest of these scumbags that should have been fired from Lucasfilm a long time ago want us dead, right? You guys all remember when he's, Ichibaka had it, the podcast where he told that podcaster that they were getting rid of the EU, and then the other host was like, why? And he basically intimated that they wanted to indoctrinate kids. Tyler Robinson is the product of that shit, that indoctrination. And you got to ask yourself, why do the rest of us have to live like this? Put a question mark. Why? Why do we have to tolerate their bullshit? We don't. And the more, look at TikTok. Look at the bizarre, angry, LGBTQ plus, racist, whatever crap going on there. I mean, you know, Matthew Dowd got fired. Good, right? I mean, how many thousands of people have been fired since then for being just disgusting, subhuman assholes? All right? Look, we have lived a long time, I mean, since the 60s, not realize we were at war with 20% of the culture, right? I mean, we Star Wars fans know perfectly well the price we've paid for disagreeing. You know, the biggest example is Gina Carano, who won her lawsuit because what Kathleen Kennedy allowed to happen. And I agree with Gina that the Fire Gina Carano hashtag was started by Pablo and Lucasfilm. Allowed to happen because Gina stood up for herself. She had a mind of her own. And she was bullied, and I mean bullied because that's what they do. They dehumanize you. They isolate you, and they smear you with the things they do. Because I don't remember until now any, you know, person that agrees with us wanting to see Mark Hamill lose a job, wanting to see Stephen King fail. You know, now we're like, well, your words matter, obviously, to people like Tyler Robinson, and it's going to happen again, and you need to take responsibility for it. You know, like I said, Obi-Wan said, you have done this yourself, right? And we Star Wars fans, again, like I said, we have witnessed it. It has happened to us. We have seen, you know, groups of us being called a hate group by a famous director, Zack Snyder. It's bullshit. It is bullshit and it has to end. And I think now Disney has the impetus to start telling Lucasfilm, despite Kathleen Kennedy being the alleged head of the company, to start firing individuals who are dangerous for them to have working for them. Okay, this is Steph signing off. See you around the galaxy.